All right, everybody, welcome back to Mondays Down South. Coming at you after Wildcard weekend. 6 games, 5 blowouts, but setting up a really interesting divisional round coming up. Got a lot to talk about. No Sai this weekend. She was up here in New York. I got to catch that awesome Lions-Rams game with him, so that was fun. And yeah, man, what you got going on?
Nothing much. Nothing much. I would have liked to say I actually know I did a really good job this week of coordinating dates and then football with the guys. So I did a little wine and design action class with Alexa, and so we're out painting, drinking wine. But that was on
Love
a
it.
Friday night, so I could say, "Hey, that was amazing and everything." But I got football with the guys Saturday and Sunday, so I was able to get that in too. So overall, win-win. But you're right, Ev. I feel like every game was a shootout and not one of those close shootouts. It was like one team ran away with it early. I was quite surprised with the Sunday slot of games and just could not make sense of how the Packers started out so quick. Given you and Cy picked that one on my behalf. I know, but you always defer to, oh, this happens every year for Dallas. This is just but every team is different, right? Every season is different. And so that's why I never really buy that logic. But you were right there. I mean, this is a recurring problem for them. And I'm not sure if you want to get into that game already, but do you think Mike McCarthy's gone?
I do, and every season is different, but I think it comes down to like culture and specifically when you look at coaching, because it's the same type of mistakes every year where they commit tons of penalties that create major issues for them. Dak is obviously a big problem. He just finds a way to like play terribly in the playoffs. And I think that, like with the fan base, the Dallas fan base, it puts a lot of pressure on them. So I think the guys tend to play tight. They get frustrated easily. CeeDee Lamb was already frustrated in the first quarter. So I mean, and the Packers looked amazing as well. So it was kind of a perfect storm. But yeah, I mean, every year is the same with the Cowboys. They give people hope. They give their fans hope that this year is going to be different, and it never is. And this is probably their worst collapse of all. And I wouldn't have thought McCarthy had a chance of getting fired, but after that, I think they're going to take a crack at Belichick personally, since he's on the market. So
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if you caught the slighted edge sword of Jordan Love saying, "Here we go" at the end, the final cadence as they are kneeling the
so good.
football. I thought that was a good one. Now, who do you think has a higher percentage chance of getting fired? Nick Sirianni with the Eagles or McCarthy with the Cowboys? You think they're both gone?
Sirianni, I think, is close to 100% getting fired. Um, from what at least from what I've heard from talking to Eagles fans and from what the internet buzz is. So I think he's almost certainly getting fired. I think he just lost the team, which is one of the reasons I was worried about the Eagles. I think the players just gave up. Like AJ Brown was kind of a microcosm of that. But I think all the players kind of felt that way. So I think he's 100% gone. And then McCarthy, I'll put it like maybe 60%. Jerry Jones tends to be super patient. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's probably still getting fired, but less of a chance.
It's hard to believe that two teams that showed domination at different points of the season. I mean, the Eagles went to the Super Bowl last year, and so the conversation I've had with some peers in Charlotte have been the opposite stance, where it's like, how do you fire a guy that brought you to the Super Bowl last year?
Yeah.
And you could argue that they would beat the Chiefs last year 6, 7 times out of 10. So it just doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah, they pull the trigger so quickly, but the one thing I will respect is a lot of teams make the opposite mistake of, once a guy kind of loses the team, which happens, at one point or another to every coach, um, they kind of tell themselves, oh, well, he's like done a good job. Like he'll turn it around. Like it can work itself out. And most of the time, like once you lose them, like it's just gone. Like, and you can't really
Mm.
get it back. And the Eagles owner tends to actually, he's quick, but I think most of the time he's right. And he doesn't, like end up wasting 2 years because he was trying to fix something that wasn't, repairable. So I think it's one of those situations, honestly. I mean, it seems really quick, but once a guy's lost a team, he's lost a team and you got to move on. So,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the vibe. But so back to the Packers, though, my question is, Jordan, after that Jordan Love game, where would you put him ballpark in your top quarterback rankings after that performance?
Still below Jared Goff, but I think he's notching towards the top 12. The top 12. What about you? Are you willing to put him in your top 10 right now?
I think I'd have to put him top 10. I mean, if you look at the NFC,
Dang.
you could argue he's the best quarterback in the NFC. I mean, Stafford still looks amazing. Hurts, I would still probably
What?
slide ahead of Jordan Love,
Whoa,
but
hang
yes,
on. Best in the NFC? What are you talking about? You've got Dak
who
Prescott, Brock Purdy.
he just smoked Dak Prescott by like
Dude,
50 points.
Jordan Love's not even the best quarterback in his division. I mean, Jared Goff is a better player than Jordan Love, right?
I mean, that game this weekend was a big time statement. It's maybe a little aggressive to put him over some of those guys, but I just think his ceiling is so much higher than like Jared Goff. Like Goff is a solid game manager; he does a good job, but I don't know. Uh, and especially from a value standpoint, being a young quarterback and still on his rookie deal, I think he could. If he's not the best, he's probably the most like valuable in the sense of contract and upside,
Mm-hmm.
given his age. So. I don't know, man. I'd probably have to have him top 10 at this point across the whole league.
You know, I'll give you that. He's a playmaker. He's a playmaker, and there are throws that he made in that game under duress that no other quarterback would be able to make. And we're talking like under duress, like throwing it like his receivers were like somewhat covered. They had like slight openings, but just threading the needle right into their hands. And he did it with a bang, like right off the jump. But I do think that there's going to be a really tall order with who they play next, and going to San Francisco, that is where dreams go to die, Ev. And I feel like you do have this expanded dream on Jordan Love, and I don't disagree with you, but I really think he's going to get humbled in this next game. I'm sure we'll talk about that, but in terms of some of the other games that happened this last weekend, let's talk about the Lions and the Rams. Obviously, you see Jared Goff come out and the entire stadium of Ford Field is cheering Jared Goff, like doing it purposefully because they know the Rams are about to take the field. And then the immediate boos as Matt Stafford leads his team onto the field. What were kind of your overarching thoughts of that whole game?
Yeah, that game lived up to the billing quite a bit. Just a good back and forth game. It was a physical game, man. The Rams kept having like all their players go out with injury. Matt Stafford with his hand cut up, and like he just kept getting drilled. He's such a tough dude. Um, Lions pulled it out. The couple things I'll say is the whistle was really in the Lions' favor. There were some really questionable calls, like potentially big calls that went against the Rams
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again, and I don't think there was a single questionable call that went against the Lions. And the second thing I mentioned to Cy, and I kind of wish he was here to debate this, but Sean McVay deserves a lot of flack for that game because his time management and game management was horrendous. The two timeouts in the second half, right, where the clock was getting down, he wanted to avoid a delay game, so he takes the timeout. Um, you know, Questionable situations. You're taking a big risk by blowing those timeouts. I think usually in the second half, you're better off just taking the 5 yards. And then it comes down to it was a long, like what, 4th and 14 at like kind of midfield with 4 minutes
Mm-hmm.
left in the game. He chooses to punt and trust his defense to get the ball back against the elite Lions offense that can run the ball down your throat, and they never saw the ball back. So I think
Yeah.
those were three really bad decisions on McVay, who he's a great coach, but one thing he does struggle with is time management and game management. Um, and I think it's something that's not going to be talked about because McVay kind of gets a pass on everything. Um, but he was really bad. I thought he was really bad and probably cost them the game. So that's my
I'm
that's
with
my
you
kind of
there.
take.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I see a lot of validity there, but he's not the only one because I'm now thinking of the Pittsburgh Buffalo game. Did you see the clock management of the Pittsburgh Steelers in both the first and the second half? I don't know if it's just the fact that they had an utter distrust for Mason Rudolph, but he actually didn't play a terrible game, and he hasn't played a terrible season either. I mean, relatively reliable, brought them to the playoffs in the first place, with a couple extra wins at the end of the regular season. But calling like all three of your timeouts before the 5 minute window in the fourth quarter is absurd when you're down one possession after you've come back. It was 17-0 Buffalo or 21-0, something like that. You thought they were going to run away with it like they normally do, where they have those 38-3 type of games. And then Pittsburgh came clawing their way back. And next thing you know, it's 24-17. They have no timeouts. And then Josh Allen stays on the field and is able to just run the clock out. I mean, Mike Tomlin, I'm not sure if you saw, he was asked in the post game, what do you think is the what do you think is going to happen with your contract situation? And he just stood there and he just walked off the stage. So I don't know what's going to happen in Pittsburgh, but what were your thoughts on the Buffalo game? Do you hype on Buffalo now again, or what's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's always so inconsistent, and they kind of showed it in that game. People were hating on Pittsburgh because of how they just played so bad in the first half, but they showed more what they're about in the second half. But yeah, I mean, I have Buffalo going to the Super Bowl. That doesn't change my mind on that. I think the offense, with the ability to run the ball with James Cook, a little more than in past years, adds a big dimension for them. And as long as they don't beat themselves, I think, they can definitely, give themselves a good chance to knock off Baltimore and Kansas City. But yeah, I don't know. The Pittsburgh situation is weird. Like I thought, overall, they're probably pretty mad at themselves for the first half they played, but overall, not a bad performance without T.J. Watt, who is like just such a massive difference maker for them. And like you said, Mason Rudolph, he ended up playing pretty well, in the regular season and in the second half of this game. So, kind of an odd press conference there. Agreed.
We were right about that prediction, though. We have to give ourselves some kudos. It's probably not the way we thought. We thought Kenny Pickett was going to be able to, drop about 25 a game and they were going to coast to victory, but they did make the playoffs according to our prediction. So
Right. They find ways to win. That's what we said. They find ways to win. Pickett would be better. He wasn't, but it didn't matter. And yeah, took the cap too. And they made the playoffs. Most people think they probably didn't belong, and that's okay. They gave the Bills a run for the money there for a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, one game that caught me by surprise was Houston and Cleveland was crazy. And that was the moment where I said, okay, CJ Stroud is that dude. And I came around to that revelation so late. You did it like halfway through the season. And I just thought you were a little bit high and mighty on a hot take and you were just kind of running with it. But I get why you believe that now. I mean, the kid makes incredible throws under duress. And he actually kind of reminds me of Jordan Love in a way, where he's able to get out of the pocket and he's able to make those challenging throws. That's the first time I've ever really even made that comparison, but I kind of see it based on that game.
I kind of saw some of that similarity as well. I was actually thinking that at one point. But yes, I mean, Stroud is just such a dude. I think quarterbacks I'd want right now: Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Stroud. Burrow mixed in there too, but like he's so elite on and off the field. He makes throws not many guys can make. I was on Twitter earlier before we were recording and listening to some of the Colts linebackers talking about him, and they were just like blown away by some of the plays he make and how he would be on like his third read with a defender in his face and still get a completion for a long first down. That type of breaking type plays. Yeah, I mean, Joe Flacco handed Houston a couple touchdowns. So I think it was, a little of the Browns playing awful and, CJ playing great. But yeah, I'm such a CJ Stroud fan. He's probably my favorite quarterback in the league right now. He's so fun to watch.
He's a good kid too. He's a good kid. If you listen to him in his interviews and stuff, super humble guy. One of my favorite things that he said that I try to like implement in my own life is he says like, whenever you're stressed out of work or you're like stressed because you got a lot of responsibilities for the day, he says like pressure is a privilege. And so it's like, I'm blessed to be pressured like to have pressure on me in the first place. When I heard that, it was like week 2. I said, oh, this team is going to the playoff. They have to at this point.
Yeah.
So hats off to the kid right there and to the team. I mean, I think coach of the year is probably going to be D'Amico Ryans. I know they don't favor the postseason, but I mean, when you have the two Coach of the Year guys go up head to head and D'Amico comes out on top, it's going to be hard not to give it to him.
Good point. That's a good point. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what he does in Baltimore. That'll be a tough test, but I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else we got? Chiefs Miami was obviously they're playing in like sub-zero temperatures. I actually didn't watch it, but it went exactly as I expected. Dolphins can't play in the cold. Tua can't play in the cold. They put up a pathetic effort. The Chiefs took care of business. But does this give you more confidence that the Chiefs are back and can win a Super Bowl?
I want to say no, but I held my tongue because that defense is so good. I mean, Snead shut down Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle was not a factor at all. That team plays well in the cold. The key is can they get past Buffalo, which traditionally speaking is yes, but that game, and I know we're going to get into the games here in a little bit for this upcoming weekend, but that game has to be the most anticipated watch for me this weekend.
Yes.
I am not missing that game. And I swear, if I see Peacock come up again, I'm going to be so angry because I was actually reading a statistic, Ev. There were like 20 something million subscribers to Peacock. And so I hope that for those people, they know what a free trial is and they cancel it shortly afterwards. And we need to establish like a moratorium so that the NFL cannot play with these random subscription services to host these playoff games. Like that needs to be done in the playoffs.
I completely agree, but I was also laughing at all the people that were just super, like complaining, and they were like, "I'm not paying for Peacock. I'm not paying for Keep." It's a tongue twister, and they're sitting at home like browsing these illegal streaming sites, or they're like going to a bar and spending $100 on food and drink. Not that I'm opposed to that, but and like it's like Peacock was like what $5? Like again, I didn't watch it, but it's a $5 subscription. And maybe you'll get some use out of it over the rest of the month. But yeah, I am out on it in general, but I find that people overreacted a tiny bit. For the $5 charge. Now, granted, not everyone is in the same financial situation, so maybe $5 is a lot for some people, but for those that it's not, I found we're freaking out a little too much. But
it reminds me of like Dana White, who like goes after all the UFC guys who try to like pirate and illegally stream. I plead the fifth, right? But it's like Dana White goes after like one person. He's like, and if you turn that system on, we're gonna catch you. We're gonna come after you. It's like, okay, Dana, yeah, I understand for one person, but there are millions of people that are doing it because your pay-per-view is way too expensive. You're right. People shouldn't complain about Peacock because it is $5 a month.
Dana's so good. Gosh, I love it when he says that though, because are you like, if you were an illegal streamer, would you not stop when he says that? Like, I would not want to mess with Dana White, even with the chances being like, what, one in hundreds of thousands or however many people are doing it. It's like, I am not messing with Dana White, dude. He means what he says.
He does. Well, at least for one person, because he pointed somebody out in a press conference. Do you remember this at all? He's like, I'm looking at you. If you turn that thing on, we've got you. And it's like, who are you talking to in this press conference?
Do we know if he was bluffing or did someone actually get arrested for this? I think he said they didn't turn it on, which is probably a lie, and he just was bluffing. But it's so good. I love what he does.
I know.
I guess the Eagles game, I think, like I said earlier, I think the Eagles players just they shut it down. They gave up. And it took to get to Baker Mayfield. But yeah, a pathetic effort from the Eagles, honestly. Just a true joke.
Honestly, complete joke. All three of us picked Eagles -3 because we believed that they would play well in the playoffs. They were a 10-1 football team, and they went 1-6, like not even against good teams. I don't understand that one at all.
As the game got closer, though, I was like, this team has showed us for the last few weeks, what they are right now. That Giants game, was so bad. They were down by 4 touchdowns at halftime to the Giants, and they played their starters. I don't blame people for thinking they could turn it around, but it took the cap to the Bucs too. The Bucs played well. They got it rolling a little bit right now.
Well, what it shows me, Ev, is I go back to that draft class and I see Devonta Smith and CeeDee Lamb, I believe, were out of the same draft class, and I think there are a couple of picks back and forth between maybe one was like 11 and then the other was picked 15th or something. CeeDee Lamb is an all-purpose wide receiver that can carry a franchise. Devonta Smith can't. Devonta Smith, as much as I love him as a wide receiver too, it was evident, and he had a great game, don't get me wrong, but he's too brittle to be an all-purpose receiver that one team relies on to get them all the way up and down the field. So I just think they were really missing A.J. Brown because Devonta Smith, he played his heart out, but he's no CeeDee Lamb, and he can only, kind of take the team as far as they can go.
Yeah, I agree. He was like the only guy that actually showed up for that game, though. He played great. And CD was awful on their end of it. I do agree with you, though. They missed AJ Brown a lot. Yeah, true number one. And, I think a big reason the Cowboys got so frustrated earlier is that Jair was, shutting down CD with that physicality at the line. Love to see it.
He's such a menace. He's such a menace. Jair
good.
Alexander. Oh, he's so good.
So good. All right, should we get to some previews?
Yeah, let's start talking about that.
All right, so let's I guess go in order. Houston at Baltimore is the first game on Saturday afternoon. I guess just to set the table, they got Baltimore as 9-point favorites. Looks like it'll be cold, but not inclement weather, so just kind of like cold and dry. I guess I'll jump to you. How do you think this game's going to go?
I think this is going to be Baltimore win and cover because M&T Bank in the playoffs is so scary to play in. I'm envisioning the Ravens with their all-black uniforms, 4:30 p.m. game. It's going to be freezing cold. You can no longer play within the comfortable confines of a dome. And C.J. Stroud, this rookie hero story, is going to have to go up against this terrifying defense full of Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, the best linebacker core, some of the best corners. Marlon Humphrey is ready to bait routes and come in with some interceptions here and there. So I think this is going to be really troublesome for the Texans, and I think their road to glory runs out here. Incredible season for them, but I have this being a comfortable win for the Ravens early. And I think that they're going to cover 9 points.
Yeah, actually correcting myself. The spread is now 7.5. It opened at 9, but it's already down to 7.5. So some money moving on Houston, which is interesting. I'm starting to not want to doubt Houston anymore. I think obviously it's a tough spot. The Ravens, great home atmosphere. They're the best team in the NFL right now. There's no argument against that. The one thing, the Texans' run D is good, but it's pretty much just Lamar drop back scramble and his receivers get open anyway. So it's a tall ask for staying in the secondary. Stroud against that defense is definitely the key matchup to watch. Obviously, I think the Texans are going to have to put up close to 30 points probably to win this.
And they're going to have no run game. The Baltimore Ravens strategy has to be, let's take the run game out, and we want to put 100% of the responsibility on C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be tough. So I would say Baltimore win. One of them or San Francisco is not going to cover. I haven't decided which one isn't going to cover. I lean Baltimore covering, especially if it's down to 7.5. I just think they're gonna. As much as I hyped up Stroud earlier, I think it's going to be a tough day for him. But we'll see. It's an interesting little game. And we got great quarterback matchups in the AFC. So I guess I'll say Baltimore covers it. But I think it'll be a good one.
Well, I want to hear your outlook on the Green Bay Packers going to San Francisco and playing the 49ers off a bye. They're fresh legs. Everybody's in. No one's injured. What do you have going on there?
Hey, so this one I think will be a shootout. I think the Packers will be able to move the ball and score a lot. That offense just looks so elite at Dallas. There's another, star-studded defense. And the Niners defense has, they've kind of bent a little bit this year. They're not kind of the same elite unit we've seen, I think, in past years. Still very good. But so I do think Green Bay is going to score. But I really think that defense is going to struggle and that the Niners are going to be able to shove it down their throat with the run game and McCaffrey, especially with, like you said, everyone healthy. I think I'm going to say, what's the spread on this one? 10? It's a little
I think
higher.
it's 8.5 now.
Oh, yeah. Open 9.5, and now it's 8.5. Wow, everything's coming down. I'm gonna say the Packers cover this one, maybe in a backdoor cover fashion.
Hmm.
Um, I like the over because I think the Packers are gonna score some points and keep up. I do think the Niners will win, but I think this one could actually get interesting. If the Packers, show up like they did against Dallas.
They're also used to playing in the cold too, so playing in inclement weather conditions is the Packers' cup of tea. This is a really challenging game because I think that spread is perfect. If I could take a gamble, I think the 49ers are going to win and cover this spread. I'm trusting in the great teams to take care of business with a week of fresh legs underneath them at home. This shouldn't be problematic. And as great as the Packers have played, I do think that Steve Wilkes in that 49er defense is going to give them looks that are going to be really challenging. I wouldn't be surprised if they had like a Tre'Davious Ward pick six or something like that in this game, just from Jordan Love being a little bit too risky with the football. And that's what I have. I have the 49ers winning and covering that spread.
Interesting. I'm trying to pull up some data here. What is this? This is just playoffs. All right, it's going to take too long, but I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know. Like I said, I think one of these teams is going to cover. I'm not totally sure which one. I'm leaning on Jordan Love here because I think the offense can keep up more so against the San Francisco defense and Stroud against Baltimore. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think they'll be able to run the ball like Dallas wasn't quite able to get the run game going, and they really didn't stick to it either. So the thing about San Francisco too that I think is important to keep in mind, like going into the playoffs, is if they do fall behind, they're not a team that's built to come from behind. And like, imagine if the Packers come out and like punch them in the mouth, get the ball first, touchdown, get a stop on defense, and then score another touchdown. You're up 14-0 or something like that, and then you have Brock Purdy and the Niners trying to come from behind. Imagine that scenario. Things could get kind of hairy there in a hurry with how that Niners team is built. So maybe not in this game. Maybe it's in futures game. Maybe it's all the way in the Super Bowl or whatnot. But you know, the Niners have to win a certain way. I think which is get a lead, hold
Yeah.
it, bleed that game out. But
I
we'll see.
completely agree, Ev. That's a great point. Brock Purdy has struggled when they have gone down early and he has to put the team on his back and try to claw their way forward. He is terrible in those situations. And I think of like the 4-pick game that he had against I forget which team it was, but I mean it was abysmal because they stopped relying on the running game, which means you can't run that well-oiled Shanahan offensive machine full of play action plays and designed end arounds for Debo. You just have to throw when you're down 14-0. So if that does happen, like the last game with the Packers and the Cowboys, where the Packers went up 14-0, this is going to be really problematic for the 49ers. I think they're aware of this, though. Now, let me ask you this, Ev. Do you think Jordan Love's going to have a problem with that defensive line? Because it's the best in football for the 49ers, but Dallas still got to him, but he just got the ball out so quick. Like, how do you think Jordan Love is going to play in this game?
Well, that's a good point because the Packers offense is built on the short passing game. And one of the reasons that they were way more successful the second half of the year is I think LaFleur kind of figured out like how to call the plays with Jordan Love and what he wants that offense to look like. So, I mean, the best way to beat a pass rush, right, is to either run the ball at him or the quick passing game and get out of your hands. So I think they can limit the pass rush similar to how they kind of limited Dallas a little bit in that regard, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe it does come down to, one big mistake he makes and they're able to get him, one time and make it count. But we'll see. I like what I saw from Jordan Love, so
Dude,
it's gonna
that's
be
an
tough.
exciting game. Well, moving on to the Sunday slate of games, you got the Buccaneers at the Lions. I'm seeing right now the spread at -6.5 Detroit's way. This is my favorite spread of the week. I've got Detroit winning and covering. I am not intimidated in the slightest, Evan, by Baker doing smelling salts before he walks into the stadium. All right. This is going to be a Detroit win and cover, and I think they are going to smoke.
Oh, you don't want to. Sorry, my computer's going off. Yeah, I
Oh,
just,
no
I
worries.
just, um, I mean, I've seen a lot of people on Detroit covering this number. I think it's a fair spread. They have an extra day to prepare. They're at home in Ford where they play so much better. I don't blame you there, but I mean, I think like the Lions defense and specifically their secondary is so beatable. Like the Bucks pass offense looks terrific right now, and I think they might struggle to run the ball a little bit, but Baker looks pretty darn good right now. I think they're going to
He
score
does.
points. I
He
mean, I think
does.
they're going to be able to score, and again, maybe it's a backdoor cover situation, but I think they're going to keep up. This game is going to be closer than people expect. I do think the Lions will win, but I'd like taking the 6.5 with Tampa.
Hmm.
I know most people are on the Lions here covering this, but I mean, I know the Monday night game was more about the Eagles, but you know, Baker and the boys look pretty darn good. I don't like the defense as much, but the defense stops the run too, um, which obviously is Ben Johnson wants to get the run game going first and then get the play action with Goff off of that. And the Bucks are going to stack the box and stop the run game first. So I don't think the run game is going to be there quite as much. Their scheme makes it really difficult, but I mean, I think it's gonna be high scoring again, but 48.5, I'll take the over on that for sure. I think Baker's gonna put up points and keep it close.
I do like the over. I like the over actually more than I like the -6.5 spread, but I'll challenge you on this. Imagine how hostile that environment is going to be. That is
I
going to
think
be
that
a crazy advantage for Detroit.
I think that makes Baker even more pumped up, though, doesn't it? Now, obviously, I'm
It
just
does.
about one guy from the team and not how the entire team reacts. I mean, plus that this team won a Super Bowl a couple years ago. Obviously, it's a ton of new faces, but like Evans and Godwin are still there. Like, there's actually the offensive line's like somewhat similar. Like a lot of the guys on defense are the same. This team won't be intimidated by a tough atmosphere, and Baker will be even more pumped up than the Tampa crowd. So I don't worry about how they'll
Hmm.
play in the atmosphere. Obviously, it is an advantage for Detroit, specifically if they get the whistle they got in the last game against the Rams. But we'll have to see. It'll be tough for the Bucks for sure, but I think they'll keep up.
Yeah, and actually, think about this too. To your point, the Buccaneers smoked the Eagles, and that was with Mike Evans not really doing anything. Well, imagine who's going to cover him if you're Detroit. Cam Sutton, please give me a break. So Mike Evans is going to go off. I think Chris Godwin had a great game, which was required for him to get back in his mojo. I love the over in this game too. I really do. I think
Yeah.
this is going to be a solid opportunity.
The one thing I'm going back to is I want to look after these matchups is if these teams have played before, and the so they played in Tampa and the Lions won 20-6 early in the season, um,
Hmm.
which is really interesting. Um, and I think Baker and the Bucks are going to remember that and really want to kind of make a statement here. But that is a surprising score. Long time ago, long time ago. But if I'm not mistaken, going back to the Baltimore game, I think Baltimore killed Houston as well the first time they played.
Hmm.
So it's just interesting to look at what happened before.
It
Um,
is. Well, I'll turn it
I think
over to you for this Chiefs Bills game. If you this is Bills -3. What are you feeling in this game? This is tough.
this is my most confident pick of the week. I think the Bills win. They cover. Obviously, these teams only play close games with each other, so I do think it'll be a nice, good, competitive game. But I am confident the Bills are going to pull this out. Um,
I do
last
too.
two, the last two times they played, both regular season, I believe, because they didn't play the playoffs last year. Both times in Arrowhead, both times the Bills won. I think at this point they're clearly the better team. If they don't beat themselves, they play to their capabilities. Um, and I think this is their moment to finally get over the hump against the Chiefs in the playoffs. Obviously, it's an Orchard Park. That's a huge advantage for them. Although the Chiefs obviously have no issue playing the cold. First true road game of Pat Mahomes' playoff career. Um, I think people thought that maybe last year needed to be their time to get over the hump, so this is a year late. But I think a lot of times it does happen a year late. And I think this is the moment they get over the hump. Um, I'm fairly confident they're going to win this football game, and I think the Chiefs game against the Dolphins was fool's gold because the Dolphins just didn't show up. They were beat up with injuries. They didn't want to play in the cold. It was a non-factor. these two teams know each other so well. So as good as the Chiefs defense is, I'm confident in the Bills offense to be able to move the ball. I love the Bills to win this game.
I do too. I really do. I think the story is set. Now they just need to execute. And I think Josh Allen, given his last game, I think it was actually a great idea for them to be fresh, to go out and play well with no mistakes, no turnovers. Josh Allen can be so volatile that he will turn the ball over 3 times in a half and they'll still win a game like they did the last regular season against Miami. They need to nip all that in the bud. They know that because the Kansas City Chiefs have been their kryptonite year over year. And I have an inkling they're going to play very good football. But know that the Chiefs are very used to playing in these elements. This is really not the biggest home advantage in the world because the Chiefs do play really well in cold weather. So it comes down to which team is a better football team. Right now, the spread is showing they are dead on equal because it's -3 Buffalo's way.
That's where I was predicting all these lines on open. I think most of them I got right, but I had this at 4.5, maybe 5.5, and they gave us a 2.5 open, pushing it to 3. I was shocked by the spread. I mean, if you look at these teams with the Mahomes Allen era have played what 5 times. So the last 2 I mentioned, the 2 in the playoffs, and I think probably 1 more regular season. All 5 in Arrowhead. I think Mahomes and Allen have never faced off in Buffalo, right?
That's right. Never in Buffalo.
And I mean, obviously, playoffs, regular season. If you look at those 5 games, I think the Chiefs have won 3. But like I said, last 2, I think the Bills know that they're the better team now, and they just can't beat themselves. They did kind of get lucky in that game they played this year with the Kadarius Toney offsides, which was insane. But and honestly, dude, I was thinking about this the other day. Josh Allen, when he doesn't turn the ball over as much, like he's going to turn the ball over a little bit, but Josh Allen, when he doesn't turn the ball over, is probably better than Patrick Mahomes, which I know is blasphemy for people to hear right now. But like, and again, a lot of this is Mahomes not having the receivers. I get it. But the impact that Josh Allen has on that team and on that offense, similar to Mahomes, don't get me wrong, but like it is wild to watch sometimes. Now the problem is he makes so many darn mistakes that kicks him back so far. But if he doesn't turn the ball over, like their offense is so unstoppable with the threat of the run and the pass, especially with James Cook running the ball. Like I'm sure they'll make a ton of mistakes in this game because they always do, which is really frustrating. But anyway, I like the Bills here a lot.
That was a crazy take, and I'm here for it, man. I love it because Josh Allen is lethal. He's indisputably, even like ignoring the legs, Evan. Ignoring the legs, he has the grandest arm of any quarterback in the history of the NFL. And he's also accurate. So when he throws a bullet and he's got good receivers that are actively engaged, like Stephon Diggs is such a reliable possession receiver. I mean, they're just going to plug and chug their way all the way down the field and then convert TDs.
Yeah, and you think about playing in the cold. Like last week, it was supposed to be like 50-mile-an-hour winds. I don't know what ended up actually happening, but he said with his arm strength, he can cut through that wind no problem. And now I think the problem is he probably doesn't have. Like he's always going to be a high turnover guy. I don't really think he has it in him to not be that, which is why I think he'll always be a tick below Mahomes. But like that Steelers game, I mean, he really turned the ball over. That offense looked good. So different caliber defense does used to be tough, but yeah, again, I love this Bills bet. Sometimes the really like close competitive games, I feel like are the easier ones to predict because we watch these teams so often. We've seen them play so many times. That I feel like it gives you so much more information as to how to bet it. So I think that's why I'm confident. But
I like it. Well, man, I think we've covered all of our bases here. Obviously, missing Cy in action this time around, but we'll get him back next week. What are you doing for the games? You doing anything fun for him? You gonna go out and watch him at a bar or something, or lock in at home?
Nothing planned right now. The Chiefs Bills one, probably the 6:30 Sunday, so that'll probably be watching at home. Maybe the Saturday games will go out and watch somewhere, but we'll see. Nothing planned right now. What about you?
I'm conducting the same strategy, taking the girl out on Friday. We're gonna have a great girl or a great date night, and then Saturday and Sunday come and say, "Hey, it's playoff football time. Gotta go,
I
gotta jump."
love it.
But
I
hey,
love
we'll
it.
see if she wants to come around with the guys and get some beers and wings. But that's
Yeah,
fully what I intend on. Just get some good buffalo wings and sit down and watch these games because I think they're going to be great matchups. And just thinking about even the first place teams, yeah, the spread is notched above a touchdown, but it's not double digits. And like you mentioned, I think the initial spread for Baltimore was 9. San Francisco's was above 10, and both of them have crept back to 7.5 and 8.5 respectively. So I think that shows a lot about the Texans and the Packers who are going up against these crazy 1 seeds. Like they could be close games, so you never know.
for sure. It's the young upstart teams, playing on house money against the two juggernauts of the league, and the Niners and the Ravens, and then you obviously got the Chiefs Bills to finish it out. So we'll see what happens. See what
That's true,
happens, but
man.
hopefully they're closer than last week. Last week's games were pretty rough, to be honest. Pretty
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Well, without further ado, that was Mondays Down South. Take it easy, guys.